Hello everyone and welcome back to Mr. and Mrs. Social Studies. My name is Sarah and today we are talking about lesson planning, some tips and tricks, and a general format. Now I will start out by saying we have talked about lesson planning in a couple past videos, so I'll be linking those below if you're curious to check some of them out, as well as in the cards as I mention other past videos. To get started, probably the most important tip for you to know is to simplify your lesson planning as much as possible. Now, if you're a newer teacher, maybe in your teacher preparation programs or at the new teacher training at the start of the year, you might have received some information or been given the understanding that you must write very detailed lesson plans. And unfortunately, especially in teacher prep programs, sometimes this is the case. However, in actual teaching experience, of course, I can't speak for every school ever, the lesson plans that are required to be submitted do not have to be anything fancy. They can be very simple, not these full-page, highly involved documents. And especially as you teach longer, I know in my own personal experience, I found that as long as I knew a general gist of what I was doing, I didn't need a full-out plan. That didn't actually help me be a better teacher. And so I encourage you, even if someone said, that you need to do this and this in a lesson, if they're not actually following up with it and checking it regularly or doing anything with it, then you probably don't have to worry about going into as much depth. And in my opinion, I find the most important three things to include would just be thinking about your standards, your objective, and then what the actual lesson is. And that's going to probably give you enough. If you know what standards you're trying to meet and what your goal is for the lesson with that objective, that's a really solid foundation. And then the agenda piece, or what you're actually doing with the students, is, the what and how you're meeting those standards and objectives. So really, when you break it down to that, it's much easier. I know in our teacher prep program that Jake and I, Mr. Social Studies, and I went through, we had to submit full page lesson plans, and I didn't have to submit much for my observations. I didn't have to submit a daily lesson plan, but he did. He had this crazy binder, and it was just excessive. So I encourage you to keep it as minimal as possible. Worst case scenario is someone calls you out on it, but let's be real. Teaching is so busy and our admin is also very busy. And so people aren't really going to be taking too much time to look too closely at these lesson plans. So keep them simple. When deciding, do I use a paper planner or a digital planner to plan lesson plans? Ultimately choose what is best for you. I will say one of the best advantages about a digital planner is that, number one, you can access it anywhere on different devices. You don't have to bring anything back and forth. It's very easy to share with someone. And the other benefit is that it's even easier to access year after year. You don't have to rewrite anything if you are doing the same plans as the year before. Of course, things always change. But if you're doing the same stuff, you can just copy and paste it into the new document, which can save you a lot of time. So obviously do what's best for you. We have found digital planning to be more effective than paper-based planning. Now, what order should you plan your lessons in? We're a big advocate of backwards planning, where you start with more of the big picture and then you work out the smaller details after that. So recently we did a video about yearly planning, so I will link that below for you as well as up in the cards if you want to check that out. Start with yearly planning to outline your year. It's okay if you've already started your year but haven't done this. You can do this at any point of the year and use it to help you with what's left of the year. And this can also be a great check-in for yourself, even like halfway through the year or at each quarter or trimester. After yearly planning, then you can get into unit planning. We also have a YouTube video breaking through how to put together a unit plan, which again is linked below and up in the cards. But the unit planning then is where you break down your individual unit. You take a look at your final assessment, such as a test or final project that you're going to have in your unit. You reflect about the different pieces of your lessons, whether you're going to be doing different activities, maybe vocab activities, geography activities, maybe you're doing some formal instruction like direct instruction or lecture about a topic, practice activities, formative, summative assessments, really kind of mapping out that full unit. And in the video that I just shared, that goes into a little bit more depth about one way to do that, specifically with digital options. And after you've then outlined your unit, then we can get into more of the day-to-day planning of the nuts and bolts of what you're doing. Now, I do want to share my screen here to share my example of using this. The only thing I did not use this template for was when I was using the grid method, specifically when I was teaching Spanish. And so I'll leave that link below as well. The grid method it's an alternative style of teaching, but you don't have to do as much like planning on the back end because it's kind of included on the grid. You'll see if you check out the video, grid method videos are linked below. But showing you my screen here, there's a couple formats. So you can see here the general lesson planning template. I know I mentioned earlier about standards, objectives, and the lesson agenda, and you can see those are reflected in this particular document here, color-coded, which is nice. And it's always helpful, I think, to have a week at a glance, just so you can see the gist of what's happening during the week. And personally for me, I found it most helpful to, if I was, on top of my game, like Friday, I would plan Friday afternoon. My fellow teacher who taught the same topic as me, we would actually meet and discuss the next week, share resources that we had. And then that was also clear to me to see what was missing. So then I could take care of what I needed to take care of before the next week. Now, sometimes life's not optimal and you run out of time or you just feel exhausted and you just want to go home. In those cases, then I might more so do some planning on Sunday just to kind of see what my week was going to be. Or if I had like a busy weekend, I would instead maybe just plan enough for Monday and then Monday plan out the rest of the week. Obviously, you'll find what works best for you, but Fridays or Sundays were usually my preferred planning days. So I would kind of fill out this chart, and then what's cool is, let's say you like using this method, you can actually, highlight everything here, copy, paste in the same document, and then you can keep track of all your weeks in one document, which I find to be the easiest, especially when you look back on it and you can scroll through to find whatever you're looking for from the past year. Lastly, when planning, especially at the unit level, it's very helpful to make sure you have all the materials you need on hand. You can gather any materials that you did the year before for that particular unit. You can gather anything that your district has provided you or that you have from your textbook or any other materials that you might have purchased. Any of these things, you can gather them all up and reflect about what you want to include. It's just helpful to have all of our resources laid out or digitally pulled up on our device so we can get a big picture and see what we already have, which can prevent us from needing to reinvent the wheel, and we might forget about some of the things that we've used in the past. So finding what you've got can be important. And a good just general organization or decluttering tip is that if you find you've got old paper copies of activities from the past, if you genuinely don't think you're going to be using them, or if the activity didn't go as well as you'd hoped, then you may just want to recycle those and not let them take up valuable space or later bandwidth when you have to go through it later. So it can almost be a great chance to clean house each time you are planning a new unit. Let us know any of your lesson planning questions in the comments below, or check out any of those other related videos that I mentioned. I also have these templates that I showed available in our TPT store if you want to check out those, in the link below as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Feel free to check out some other videos here and subscribe if you're new. We'll see you next time. Bye.